The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 91. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of real women producing extraordinary results by finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook at our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a special lady on. She is a yoga teacher, a writer, and she also has her own successful podcast. So she'll be here today sharing her story about self-confidence. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Amanda Kingsmith. Amanda, how are you today? And maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourselves with the listeners.
Sure. Thanks, Sheena, for having me. It's awesome to be on your podcast and to talk about self-confidence and to be talking specifically to women. I think it's super important for women to be aware of self-confidence and their personal self-confidence. So really relevant topic in my life. To give listeners a bit about me, I'm born and raised in Alberta, Canada. I love writing, yoga. I went from practicing to teaching yoga. I love being outside in the mountains. And basically, I kind of went the sort of typical career path. I went to university straight out of high school. I got a Bachelor of Commerce in Marketing. I graduated, kind of climbed the corporate ladder and realized I was miserable. So quit my job, went traveling with my partner, Ryan, and we've traveled all over the world together. And that's really helped me to discover who I am outside of where I grew up and really where I found my self-confidence and discovered who I was. And that inspired me to do my yoga teacher training, as well as for Ryan and I to start our podcast, which is The World Wanders.
Awesome. That's amazing how, you were able to just get up and do what you want. Some people, they get stuck in what they don't like doing, and they just keep on doing it thinking that there's going to be a different result. You just said, you know what, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm just going to go do what I want to do. And now look where you are. You're traveling the world. You have a successful podcast. You're doing what you love. So congrats to all that. And Amanda, what's your cultural background?
I'm Canadian. I'm like a fourth generation Canadian. Like most Canadians, I've got sort of like the European mutt going on. So that's kind of basically where that's at.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, I'm also from Canada. I'm actually from Toronto originally, but I'm currently in Hawaii running away from the winter.
Jealous. Yeah, I'm currently in Georgia, so I'm also running away from the winter.
You know how cold Canada gets, right? So.
I feel, yeah. I'm like, this is like my first Christmas without snow, because I've always been home for Christmas before, and the closest to having this warm of a December I've had, I was in New Zealand.
Awesome. It is a better feeling. For
yeah,
sure.
Totally.
So, Amanda, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
A quote that I really like is by Ayn Rand, who's the author of Atlas Shrugged, as well as The Fountainhead and many other books. She is really based on the principles of like libertarianism and freedom. And the quote is, "The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me." And I really love that quote because it feels really powerful to me. It's like this self-confidence, like, I don't care what you think about what I'm doing. I want to do it and I'm going to do it. And that's something that I've really kind of lived with for the last couple years as I've sort of drifted away from what a lot of my friends are doing and kind of what I felt like was expected from me and that sort of thing. So I really love that quote.
I really love that because, as women, we always feel like we need permission from somebody to do what we want, and really we don't, right? We just need permission from ourselves saying, we can do what we want. We have what it takes and just go out there and do it without, thinking what other people think. And, I love that you mentioned that, right? It's not who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. So thanks for sharing that. And, how would you define self-confidence?
I think self-confidence to me is really about believing in who you are without needing anyone's validation, without comparing yourself to other people, without having a fear of judgment of what people are thinking of you, which is so much harder than to just state it. It's so hard, but I think that that's a really good, that's exactly what self-confidence is in my mind. It's just being this really strong, independent individual who's just going into the world knowing what they want and how they're going to get it, and having the support system that if they feel kind of uncertain about it, they've got those people to lift them up.
I love it. And it's so true, right? Just being strong, being who you are. And, the more you can be yourself, the easier it gets, right? You just have this easy flow. Like, you know what? I'm me, I'm happy. And there's going to be people out there who will like me for who I really am. So I love that definition. And, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
It's kind of interesting because I lived sort of in this world where I was really oblivious to the fact that I had like low self-esteem and that my self-confidence wasn't very good. I was smart in school. I had lots of friends. Like I had a popular boyfriend. And then I graduated. I got into a good university. I got this degree. I was doing really well. Different boyfriend, but still like good looking guy. He's doing well. Like everything on the surface was really like, this is what you should be doing. Like if there was a list of things you should be doing, I was just casually checking it off. And then it was kind of like on the inside, like there was just this self-hate, like this unconscious self-hate. Like I was always staring in the mirror. Like it was never about the things that looked good on my body. It was always, how could this be better? What things could I change about myself? And comparing myself to other people. Yeah, and really driving my self-worth by comparing myself to other people. And especially like in terms of how I physically viewed myself, it was always comparing myself to my friends or the people who were close to me. And if I felt like I, wasn't feeling pretty enough or skinny enough, it was going to the gym a lot and kind of trying to change these things about myself. And there was no self-acceptance there. And just really bad relationship with food. Yeah, that's sort of how life was. And I just thought that this was normal. Like I thought that I was just living in this world where that's how it was.
Wow, well, thanks for sharing that. And, sometimes you see people and you're like, wow, they look so perfect on the outside, not knowing what they're really feeling on the inside, right? And it's common, right? Mm-hmm. We just see what's on the outside. We never see what a person really feels on the inside, kind of like what you mentioned. And what was that aha moment when you realized, you don't have to feel like that on the inside. You can, be who you want to be, do more things, be the person that you wanted to be.
It was while I was traveling in South America in 2014. So we went to South America for 6 months from January to July of 2014. And my boyfriend had been doing a ton of like personal development and listening to a lot of stuff. And he felt like he was really working on his self-esteem. And he was like, oh, you should really like be listening to these things. And I was like, I don't need that. Like, I'm confident in myself. Like, I've got high self-esteem. And he was like, okay, like clearly seeing the things that I wasn't seeing. And he was like, you should just really listen to this book. And it's called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And so I was sitting on a plane going from Lima to Iquitos in Peru. And Brandon says something about this concept of pseudo self-esteem, which is when we convince ourselves that we're someone that we aren't. So we convince ourselves that because we have all these great things in our lives, like a degree and a good job and a boyfriend and lots of good friends around us and money for nice clothes and money for food, that sort of thing, we convince ourselves that, we're happy and that we're confident. And I had this moment where I was like, he is talking to me like this is my life. And it was just like right there that I felt so stunned. And I was like, oh, I've been like living this like sort of fake reality where it's not actually, how I feel. And I started just like digging deeper into it and being like, oh, wow, my self-esteem was so poor. And I was like constantly comparing myself to other people and, like had such a bad relationship with food. And I just started uncovering all of these things. And it was really when I stopped. It was like this moment when I stopped lying to myself that I was like, okay, now I can start working on this.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, some people don't realize what you just mentioned, right? It's like we feel like we're confident, we have to compare ourselves to feel more confident when really it's like the total opposite, right? Especially when we live in a world where it's always like keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm, totally.
It's really not a great path to go on because really you're just, you're using material things to become more confident when really it's just be you, don't worry about those material things. So, I'm glad you mentioned that. And, what's your life like now after that aha moment?
I think the best way to describe the way that I feel now and that I felt sort of since then is free. There's a lot of freedom in being confident. And I hadn't realized how much stress I was putting on myself by constantly comparing my physical body to the people around me. Like even going to a yoga class, which I really love, was, I wasn't able to really get into my body because I'm looking at all the other people around me and comparing myself to my friends and comparing what I'm wearing to my friends and spending money on clothes I don't need. And so, I just have this freer sense of self, and I'm confident in what I eat. I dress how I want to. I rarely wear makeup anymore because it's just, I'm fine with who I am. And I hated being alone before. So I take a lot of comfort in being alone. And I think it just comes from the ability to be confident in being strong and independent. And there's lots more self-acceptance there and self-love, which is pretty amazing.
Awesome. I'm glad you're able to, live like that now where you're just you and you're okay with it, right? And, sometimes we need time being by ourselves, right? Some people think it's weird and they think like, well, you must not have friends or something. It's like, no, I just like my own company. You have to learn to love your own company so that other people can, be attracted to you as well, right?
Oh yeah, totally. That's huge.
I'm a big believer in that, right? Whether it's just take a walk or have breakfast by yourself. I mean, it's time with yourself, and I think it's really important. So, Amanda, to the woman who's listening to this episode, she's also on her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I think patience and compassion with yourself. It's not like I listened to Nathaniel Branden and was like, oh my gosh, I have these issues, I'm going to work on them, and woke up the next day a whole different person. It was, I worked through his 6 pillars exercise, and I've listened to the book 3 times, and still to this day, which is like a year and a half later, I do exercises from that book, and I do like self-confidence exercises. So it's being patient, and it's kind of just chugging away with it. Like it takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. And so be patient with yourself, have compassion for the times that when being confident is really hard, because sometimes there's people who, trigger low self-esteem from past interactions, and just having that like compassion for the fact that you're only human and it's going to be hard at times and that you're not going to be perfect. And I think that that's the biggest thing. I know you asked for one thing, but I think having support is really good. Like having people who really support your journey for self-confidence. Because if you have friends who are like, oh no, like you're fine, like, let's go shopping, let's binge drink, let's binge eat, and they're encouraging you to do these things that you don't really want to do because you know that they bring you down, then I think it's really important to, not necessarily completely cut them out of your life, but separate yourself from them and, find people who really build yourself up. And somebody once told me that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So I think it's really important to consider that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I do believe, surrounding yourselves with like-minded people is so important. Mm-hmm. So thanks for sharing that. And Amanda, if our listeners want to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, and maybe want to listen to your podcast, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yeah, definitely. I have a personal website, which is www.amandakingsmith.com. So just my full name. It started out as a travel blog, and it's kind of evolved into travel, inspiration, yoga, kind of like day-to-day life. It's called My Love Affair with Life. So kind of talk on there a little bit about self-esteem and sort of my journey just through life. And then my travel podcast is called The World Wanders. And so it's worldwanders.com. We have a Facebook page for that, as well as Twitter. And then it's just The World Wanders on iTunes. And if anyone wants to follow my travels, it's Amanda Kingsmith on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Amanda and check out her awesome travels, just head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Amanda's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Amanda for taking the time to share her story and share her tips on self-confidence. So Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Sheena.
Not a problem. And to the listeners out there, be on the lookout for another amazing episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence, and we'll catch you later. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us at the Tao of Self-Confidence. Head over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com for full recaps of every show, our amazing blog articles and resources, and just plain fun. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits, so start today.